Two brief passages from Falling Man. Paper was flying down the hallway, rattling in a wind that seemed to wash down from above. There were dead faintly seen in offices to either side. He climbed out over a fallen wall and made his way slowly toward the voices. In the stairwell, in near dark, a woman carried a small tricycle tight to her chest, a thing for a 3-year-old, handlebars framing her ribs. They walked down, thousands, and he was in there with them, one step and then the next. There was water running somewhere, and voices in an odd distance coming from another stairwell or an elevator bank out in the dark somewhere. It was hot and crowded, and the pain in his face seemed to shrink his head. He thought his eyes and mouth were sinking into his skin. Things came back to him in distant visions, like half an eye staring. The size of it, the sheer physical dimensions, and he saw himself in it, the mass and scale, and the way the tower swayed, a slow and ghostly lean. Someone took his arm and led him forward for a few steps, and then he walked on his own, and for an instant he saw it again, going past the window. The man falling sideways, arm out and up, like pointed up, like, why am I here instead of there? There were long, stalled moments, and he looked straight ahead. When the line moved again, he took a step down, and then another. They talked to him several times, different people. And when this happened, he closed his eyes, maybe because it meant he didn't have to reply. It did not seem forever to him, the passage down. He had no sense of pace or rate. There was a glow stripe on the stairs that he hadn't seen before, and someone praying back in the line somewhere in Spanish. A man came up, moving quickly, in a hard hat, and they cleared a space. And then there were firemen in full bulk, and they cleared a space. There were long waits and others not so long, and in time they were led down to the concourse level beneath the plaza, and they moved past empty shops, locked shops, and they were running now, some of them, with water pouring in from somewhere. They came out onto the street, looking back, both towers burning. And soon they heard a high drumming rumble and saw smoke rolling down from the top of the tower, billowing out and down methodically, floor to floor, and the tower falling, the south tower, diving into the smoke, and they were running again. The wind blast sent people to the ground. A thunderhead of smoke and ash came moving toward them. The light drained dead away, bright day gone. They ran and fell and tried to get up, men with toweled heads, a woman blinded by debris, a woman calling someone's name. The only light was vestigial now, the light of what comes after, carried in the residue of smashed matter and the ash ruins of what was various and human, hovering in the air above. He took one step and then the next, smoke blowing over him. He felt rubble underfoot, and there was motion everywhere, people running, things flying past. He walked by the Easy Park sign, the breakfast special, and 3 suits cheap, and they went running past, losing shoes and money. He saw a woman with her hand in the air, like running to catch a bus. He went past a line of fire trucks, and they stood empty now, headlights flashing. He could not find himself in the things he saw and heard. 2 men ran by with a stretcher, someone face down, smoke seeping out of his hair and clothes. He watched them move into the stunned distance. That's where everything was, all around him, falling away, street signs, people, things he could not name. Then he saw a shirt come down out of the sky. He walked and saw it fall, arms waving like nothing in this life. Some days later, every time she saw a videotape of the planes, she moved a finger toward the power button on the remote. Then she kept on watching. The second plane coming out of that ice blue sky. This was the footage that entered the body, that seemed to run beneath her skin, the fleeting sprint that carried lives and histories, theirs and hers, everyone's, into some other distance, out beyond the towers. The skies she retained in memory were dramas of cloud and sea storm, or the electric sheen before summer thunder in the city, always belonging to the energies of sheer weather, of what was out there. Air masses, water vapor, westerlies. This was different. A clear sky that carried human terror in those streaking aircraft. First one, then the other. The force of men's intent. He watched with her. Every helpless desperation set against the sky. Human voices crying to God, and how awful to imagine this. God's name on the tongues of killers and victims, both. First one plane, and then the other. The one that was nearly cartoon human, with flashing eyes and teeth. The second plane, the South Tower. He watched with her, one time only. She knew she'd never felt so close to someone, watching the planes cross the sky. Standing by the wall, he reached toward the chair and took her hand. She bit her lip and watched. They would all be dead, passengers and crew, and thousands in the towers, dead. And she felt it in her body, a deep pause, and thought, there he is, unbelievably, in one of those towers. And now his hand on hers, in pale light, as though to console her for his dying. He said, it still looks like an accident, the first one, even from this distance, way outside the thing. How many days later I'm standing here, thinking it's an accident. She said, because it has to be. It has to be, he said. The way the camera sort of shows surprise. But only the first one, only the first, she said. The second plane. By the time the second plane appears, he said, we're all a little older and wiser. Thank you.
How is this? Can you hear me okay? Enough time has not really passed to make a solid historical judgment about 9/11. It's still only been 6 years. We know that it's not the first great urban tragedy, even in the 20th century. There have been many. The Tokyo earthquake and fire of 1923, the great bombing raids of World War II, or long before that, Pompeii, or the Chicago fire, or New York's Great Fire in 1835. Think of the earthquakes, the tornadoes, the floods, the tsunamis. But we do know a few things about 9/11. Every single person in this room knows exactly what he or she was doing when they heard about the World Trade Center. We know that it was the first time the United States had been attacked within its borders since the War of